Back on the air again. It's Tuesday, about 12 o'clock-ish, and we're on Church Talk Radio here on the Wellness Connection. And I am Dr. Frank Gomez. If this is your first time listening in, I'm a chiropractic physician. I've been a chiropractic physician for 32 years. My office is in Sayville on Sunrise Highway. And the number there, if you wish to ask me any questions about what we're doing today or anything health-related, is 631-991-3492. Again, that's my office number. The office number to call in here is 631-766-9931. Okay, so today we're going to talk about stomach bloating, but before we start, I found this article and I just wanted to read it. I thought it was something that everybody should know. As we know, vitamin D is very important with our bodies and taking it in as far as supplementation goes for a lot of things, digestion, brain function, and whatnot. But let me just read this quick. Researchers at the University of California, San Diego School of Medicine and the Creighton University School of Medicine in Omaha, that's a mouthful, right, have reported that markedly higher volumes of vitamin D is needed to reach blood levels that can prevent or markedly cut the incidence of breast cancer and several other major diseases than originally thought. Okay, the results were published in February 21st in the Journal of Anti-Cancer Research. According to the Ercler press release on February 22nd, and I quote here, we found that daily intakes of vitamin D by adults in the ranges of 4,000 to 8,000 IUs are needed to maintain blood levels of vitamin D metabolites in the range needed to reduce by about half the risk several diseases, such as breast cancer, colon cancer, multiple sclerosis, and type 1 diabetes, said Cedric Garland. In my professional experience, 75 to 80% of the people that walk in my office don't have enough vitamin D. And actually most of those are critical levels, and that alone can cause a lot of cardiovascular problems, and according to this now, can increase your risk of certain types of cancer. What I do is, after we do our blood work and determine what the person is actually deficient in, especially in D3, I put everybody on 10,000 IUs. Even for myself, I take 10,000 IUs a day, because basically we're not outside as much as we used to be, so we need to actually take in a lot more. And then we have here Professor of Family Preventative Medicine at UC San Diego Moores Cancer Center. And again, I quote, I was surprised to find that the intake requirements to maintain vitamin D status for diseases for prevention was so high. The higher than normal minimal intake of vitamin D used to be 400 IUs a day that was needed to defeat crickets in the 20th century, said Robert P. Hanley, MD. Anyways, well, a lot of people were outside a lot more of that too, you know, and they did a lot of work outside. They got sunlight, and the sunlight, you know, your body uses the sunlight to convert into vitamin D into your body. So that's the reason, because we're never outside. You know, you go from your house, you go from your car, you go to your office, and then, you know, especially in the wintertime, you never see daylight half the time, especially when it gets dark at 4:30. I don't like that much. Anyways, what else do we have here? Study several decades. This result was what our dose response studies predicted, but it took the study to do. So in other words, a lot of people were saying this, but they actually got the study now to prove it. So studies also show about 10% of the people have this new appropriate level of vitamin D in their blood. Yeah, and then that's basically what I said. 90% of the people do not have that. I just thought this was really important that you listen to this. So for anything, go to the store, buy some vitamin D3, 10,000 IUs, take one a day, or take 5,000 two a day. But go to a real vitamin store, right? You know, don't go to Walmart and Target and just pick something up. Get something that's really going to work for you. Okay, so stomach bloating. A lot of people have stomach bloating. I know I was definitely dealing with that for a long time. I remember when I first started getting it, and it was several years ago, I used to be able to eat a bowl of cereal, and I put milk in it. And then all of a sudden my stomach would bother me, it bloats up, right? And then, you get all kinds of gas in your stomach, and then it comes out, so that's not good. But, I thought it was the cereal because it was wheat cereal, and I thought maybe, okay, maybe I'm getting a little sensitive to wheat and I can't have that. But it turned out it was the milk because of the lactose, and I couldn't have that either. So that's just one of the things. But, when you get bloated stomach, it's distended all the time, and you may think that you're getting fatter, but you're not. It's just the gases that are inside. So some of the causes are just plain old digestive disorders. Leaky gut, Crohn's disease, colitis, those kind of things can cause bloating because you're not digesting your food properly, and so it's going from your stomach to your small intestines, and it actually leaks. Some of the fluids leak out into the system, and then it causes problems, and that can lead to Crohn's and colitis. And then usually that's because of a poor diet. Fluid retention, this is the thing, is when you're just holding too much water. If you have too much salt or sodium, your body tends to hold on to that. It's called excessive sodium syndrome or something dumb like that they call it. But in the general public, we take 10 times too much sodium in and 10 times little potassium. Potassium and sodium work together. They do different things, but they kind of neutralize each other, and they're used for chemical reactions. They're used for muscle contraction. Very important. But then too much sodium is going to cause you to bloat up. But not only bloat up, but you're going to be bloating up on the cellular level. Okay, it's not extrastitial fluids. It's actually inside the cell that starts to blow up. And then once that happens, it can actually decrease the function of the cell at that point. So you got to be careful with the fluids. That leads me to dehydration part. All right, obviously everybody knows it's important to be hydrated, especially now with the summer and it's been so hot lately. You sweat a lot and you lose a lot of fluids, and it's very important. As a general thing, I tell people 64 ounces of water, good filtered water. Try to stay away from the tap water because there's so many chemicals in that, and that can cause you to have a problem as well. Also, for me, I remember I used to just have a glass of water and I would get bloated. One of the reasons was, and we're going to get to this later, but being that we're on water, is I would drink water while I was eating. All right, so or drink too much water before I ate, or too much water right after I ate. The reason being, the water will decrease the effectiveness of the acids in your stomach to break down the foods that you're eating. So the best thing to do, in the perfect world, if you could, is drink fluids up to a half hour before you eat, and then wait a half hour after you eat before you do that. I have water while I'm eating still right now, but just a little bit, because sometimes I get dry mouth when you're trying to eat something. Things, especially like chicken, it can be kind of dry at times if you overcook it, like I do a lot. So just a little bit, and that will help. Also, it's good for your, thinning your blood out, and for your liver and your kidneys and digestive system alone. So, you got to stay hydrated well. And by the same token, too much water, it can actually be just as bad as too little water. So if you're dehydrated, or if you're drinking too much water, you're going to get the same results. Especially, when you dehydrate, especially in the beginning, when your body starts to dehydrate, you might notice that your face is starting to bloat a little bit. And then actually when you get dehydrated, then it kind of goes down again. But that's a little bit of a precursor. Your body will try to hold on to as much water as possible if you don't have enough coming in, and it'll put it wherever, it can store it. So you got to be careful with that. And, constipation, there's really nothing I just need to say about that, because a lot of times you eat a lot of foods and the body gets it starts to ferment, which means it's sitting in your stomach, sits in your small intestines, and a lot of bacteria start to get to it. And what happens is it ferments and produces all kinds of gas, and then that can back you up. One of the reasons for constipation, believe it or not, is not chewing your food properly. You know, when I was a young kid, you know, I used to gobble down my food, and even in my adult days, until I kind of really realized how important it was to chew your food, my father used to yell at me all the time and tell me that, you know, I needed to, slow down, chew your food. He used to say, you know, the Russians are on an ice slip, you know, like I guess back in the Cold War days or whatever it was, but that was a good saying back then. So when you're chewing your food, you should actually try to chew your food between 30 and 50 times before you actually swallow it. Because this way, as you're chewing your food, your body's preparing the enzymes that it needs to break down. And if you chew it not properly, you're going to get chunks of food that eventually can lead to leaky gut, Crohn's, colitis, and a couple of other things that we talked about before. So make sure you chew your food well and stay hydrated. And that will help a lot, believe it or not. Chewing your food until it's liquidy, you'll see a difference if you're having a problem with that. You know, food allergies and sensitivities, okay, that's always an issue, because if you're allergic to something and you're eating it, you're gonna blow up in general. For me, I'm lactose intolerant, and I have some wheat allergies, so I gotta be careful of that. I stay away from gluten, because that causes me to blow it up too as well, and most people do as well. Now, we have gluten, it's like everybody has a gluten intolerance right now. You know, from all the foods that we ate that were not so good for us, and that we didn't really realize what was going on with all our foods, and now we're starting to get an idea. You know, we talked about that a lot of times, about the chemicals and all the stuff that's in our foods over here in America, and in other countries they don't have that. And they don't have the gluten issues that we have, because they've been eating healthier whole foods, and the bodies have not broken down to the point where they can't deal with the gluten problems. So, you know, again, like in our office, what we do is we text when we're checking your blood for the first time to find your deficiencies. We also do food allergies, and we can find out if you're allergic or sensitive to anything. So as I'm going through this, if you have any questions, you know, if you're on Facebook, you can leave a comment below, you know, or push a like button or a heart button or whatever you want kind of button on there. You know, that would be awesome, and share this with somebody who may be having some bloating issues. Or you can just give a call, 631-766-9931, and we'd be happy to talk to you live if you got the guts to get on the phone while we're live. And then there's something called the SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. All right, so what happens is, again, this can all be related to not chewing your food properly or eating not the best foods, but the foods don't digest enough out of your stomach, and there's not enough acid in there. And then by the time it gets into your small intestines, it just kind of slowly goes through. Now, your small intestines don't have a lot of bacteria, especially compared to your colon. And what happens if the food kind of backs up and it's not doing well, the bacteria will back up from the colon and into the small intestine, and then it'll start to break down, and you know, you can get, again, leaky gut and all kinds of crazy things. So you got to be careful. Again, it all goes back to chewing your food properly. And infections, okay, usually bacterial infections like yeast or candida. If you have something like that going on, that could be tested for as well. And bowel obstruction. You know, some people misconstrued bowel obstruction. Now, this can be a serious thing for constipation. You know, when you get constipated, sometimes, you know, you'll get some pains, but, you know, bowel obstruction can be like really, really terrible pains, and you don't evacuate for days, and that can mean you have a serious problem. You know, you go to a physician, and they'll have to do some testing for that, and if it's really bad, they may have to do surgery. But usually, with the proper diet and changing foods and things that you drink, you can, and the medications that they give you, that can be avoided if you get to it fast enough. All right. So let's talk a little bit about these things called FODMAPs. Now, what's FODMAP? Well, a FODMAP is actually sugar alcohols. You know, when you read something, it says, you know, I have this much sugar and then I have this much sugar alcohol. You know, the government has said that, you know, and these companies can actually put down, say it has 3 grams of sugar, but it has 12 grams of sugar alcohol. They could say their product has 3 grams of sugar. They don't have to mention the sugar alcohol. And the sugar alcohol gets broken down just the same way. You know, it's still a sugar. It still can cause you to have any sensitivities. It still can cause you to flare up with your autoimmune system. But one of the things that it does, it causes bloating. Now, a FODMAP is a fermented, I'm going to read it right off the paper here, fermented oligosaccharides, disaccharides, monosaccharides, and polyenols. You know, they're carbohydrates that if your digestive system is working fine, then, you know, it could separate them. And if it's not, if you have a lot of bloating, then you can't separate them, which means your body's not going to digest them, which means they're going to become fermented, and then you're going to have an issue with that. So, some specific foods I want to get into too is legumes, right? You know, beans and lentils, soybeans. Actually, you shouldn't even be eating any soybeans. Right now, soy is like a voodoo thing. You know, we stay away from soy as much as possible, especially if you're a man, because soy is an estrogenic, which means it can actually produce estrogens in our body. And, you know, as a man, we don't want to have too many estrogens. Also, if you're postmenopausal women, you want to stay away from soy because you don't want to have too many estrogens, too much estrogen in your body as a postmenopausal woman, because, you know, naturally your body starts to decrease that, all right? And that can actually, if you start to bring that up, it can actually cause some breast cancer in some women. So you got to be careful. So what are you going to do? You know, a lot of people like beans, and, you know, well, beans alone will cause you to have gas if you eat too many of those because they're rich in carbohydrates, and that can cause a lot of that. But you got to soak them, you know, sprout them, you know, sprouted beans, sprouted legumes. So which means sprouted means they crack open, and you can buy them in a can that way, or you can just soak them in water overnight, and then you can, you know, if you can cook your own beans that way, which will be a lot easier to digest. All right, again, they're part of the FODMAP family. And then we go to you know, vegetables, especially the cruciferous vegetables, which are the dark leafy green or the dark green vegetables like broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, that kind of thing. I mean, they're a great source of vitamins and iron, potassium, vitamin C, and whatnot. And also iron, like, broccoli has a lot of iron in it. And as a matter of fact, I overloaded my system with iron because I love broccoli and I was just eating too much of it. But as far as causing gas problems is when you eat raw vegetables. Your body cannot break down these raw vegetables as much as you can. Hi Sharon, how you doing? I just saw your name up there, so I figured I'd say hello. Rob, hi. You know, make sure you steam them or you cook them. This way your body will be, they're kind of like pre-digested and a lot easier. You know, again, you got to really chew these kinds of foods, especially the stalks of these foods, because they're very high in fiber. You got to really break them down very well. All right, otherwise you're going to have, you know, you're going to have fermenting going on, you're going to have the bloating going on, you're going to have the gas problems. And dairy products. Now, we did a lot of talks about dairy products, you know, especially, you know, pasteurized dairy products and cow's milk and whatever milk, you know. And I've said this before, but I'll say it again, you know, as humans, we're the only animal on the planet that drinks someone else's milk. So you got to be careful with that. And then also the cows, they're fed not such great food. You know, they're actually fed GMO foods, and then they end up in us. And, you know, it's a whole big, I guess, how to do, you say. A lot of people are getting to realize that, you know, they're staying away from the dairy products. But, you know, there's other things called raw dairy products like kombucha and those kind of things that actually are good for you, can help you with your bloating. Apples and watermelon. You know, you probably didn't think that would be something that would be on the list, but it actually is. You know, for the most part with any fruits, you should not eat them while you're having a meal, before or after a meal, because it mixes with them, doesn't mix very well with the foods, and it doesn't break down very well with the foods, and that can cause you to have that. So when you're eating like apples, I mean, I used to eat really, really big apples, like big apples, and I always used to bloat with that. And so what I do now is I buy smaller apples, but I don't eat them before too close to the food, you know, the meals that I'm having, and I don't eat them right after. You know, I'll eat them as a snack. I'll eat them. They're best eaten alone. And so again, fiber. You know, fiber. You know, chew your foods, and you know, you'll find, you know, you'll forget. Like I even forget still. You know, and I'll be counting in the beginning. I'm doing good, but as I'm eating my food, I forget, and then I'll swallow a couple of times. I'm like, man, I didn't chew that. So, you know, you got to be careful. What else we have? And then one thing here that's kind of easy is beer, right? A lot of people like to have a beer with meal, or even on its own. Again, having any kind of liquid while you're eating is going to cut down your acid in your stomach, and it's going to make it harder to digest your food. So you got to be careful. So beer is like a carbonated beverage. It's made by fermenting carbohydrates and barley and maize and wheat and rice, that kind of thing. So it's already carbonated. A digestive enzyme before and after you eat, which will help. Like my dad used to say, don't talk while you're chewing your food. You know, and he didn't know it, but one of the reasons is because while you're talking and you're chewing, you're going to swallow air, and that'll be not a good thing. And make sure you stay hydrated. Here's the thing. All right, like I said last week, I want to try to start adding some inspirational things here that some people have done, and I'll see if I can get through this real quick. So it says KO molded young lives that in turn gave her reason to live. Getting up for work is hard for anybody, right? So imagine doing this every day for 2 decades, suffering with cancer, and that's what KO did. And she did it possibly better than anyone else could have, touching lives and helping the hopes and dreams of other people. Clearly, she helped mold generations of young women who will successfully move on to a much better lives. All the while, no one ever heard her complain or even mention that she was suffering from breast cancer, and she never said anything. As North Carolina State head coach, women's basketball coach, complied an impressive resume. That's what she did. She was a basketball coach. Her record was 737-34 over 38 years, 34 in North Carolina. I'm kind of going to go through this quick. She made a Hall of Fame. She has all kinds of awards in the basketball playing and coaching. They know her for much more of the things like her adherence to principles, morals, values, unwavering resolve in fighting the cancer, and how she raised awareness and money for the research. Winning a gold medal was one of her biggest things in life, but you know, Ye Young taught women to compete and win. According to ESPN, she never flinched or complained, relying on her faith as the disease progressed. She commonly noted there were other patients with harder battles than she was fighting, and it was inspiration for her to watch those people go through that. Almost everybody is dealing with something. We're all faced with a lot of tough issues, and that we're dealing with. We know we need just to come to court, and just to come to the court, you know, can be a really tough way for her to be. You know, you can't bring it on the court. So in other words, you can't bring your problems, you know, everywhere. At least that's what she did, especially with the cancer. I have to go through it. I accept that. I'm not panicked about it because the Lord is in control. But it just would be so saddening if I had to go through it and I couldn't help these people. But then I see helping others in a great way than I ever have. And that was an amazing thing, you know, for her. So for most of the 2007 season, weakened by the disease, sat on the bench while her assistant coach barked commands to her players At times, she had to be helped to her feet, but yeah, I always found a way to keep coaching and instill the faith in other people and as her players. Glance's assistant called her the Iron Woman, and the players wore pink with shoelaces in honor of their warrior leader. Even opposing players donned the pink laces on their appropriate shoes. In fact, whenever Jan was in town, people would often stop her and say they were praying for her. This kept Kay going because she knew her efforts meant something. Her life and the cancer built around her helping others while she sacrificed. Many people are struggling, or at least think they are struggling. Countless people have already given up because of a few rough months or a year or so, when Kay achieved just about all her massive success while fighting cancer for 2 decades. Your problems most likely pale in comparison to Kay Yao's. Next time you think things are so bad and you want to give up, think about Ye Kao and what she said. If you start to dwell on the wrong things, it'll take you down fast. Every morning I wake up and the first thing I am thinking of is how thankful I am for another day. So, let's be thankful for God for another day. Every day that I get up, I'm always praying. I'm very grateful for another day, no matter how bad things get, because I'm alive and I'm around and I can help some other people and hopefully change their lives for the better. So I think we're pretty much out of time here. So I just got one again. My name is Dr. Frank Gomez, Total Health Wellness Center in Sayville. My phone number there is 631-991-3492. Again, if this was helpful, please push the share button and the like button. It would be appreciated, or leave some comments. Until next time, here on churchtalkradio.com, I will see you next week, and have a blessed day. Thank you.